Okay, so if you run a small, medium, or maybe even a micro enterprise in SMME, you definitely know that feeling, that intense pull towards the government tender. It often feels like it's the only real path to scaling up,
I agree.
right?
It really does. But here's the thing we're digging into today. Focusing only on winning those tenders. Well, it means you're strategically, maybe even accidentally, neglecting this massive parallel opportunity.
An opportunity to build like sustainable internal strengths.
Exactly. The fixation on tenders, it can be a trap. Businesses spend months, sometimes years, chasing these really competitive tenders, often, neglecting the core work needed to actually be competitive.
Right.
So our mission here in this deep dive is pretty simple. We want to show you how things like grants, soft loans, and these strategic incentives, how they can be used as levers to build capacity.
Allowing you to invest in your business, but on your own timeline.
Yes, and ultimately making you much, much stronger for the long game.
Okay. We've pulled together the key sources, and we're going to try and extract the really actionable stuff on, well, two main pillars of support. First, the provincial power, the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller, or GEP,
GEP.
and then the national scope of the Department of Small Business Development, the DSBD, and its crucial funding partners.
Mhm. Consider this the shortcut to finding out where that development money actually is.
Let's start with the basic problem, though. Tenders seem like where the big money is. So why aren't they enough? Why not just focus there?
Well, because tenders demand that you already have the capacity. They assume you're ready to go.
Ah.
They're incredibly competitive. The process can be agonizingly slow, let's be honest. And they almost always require you to have established scale, perfect compliance, proven track records.
So if I'm a young business or maybe even an established one trying to jump up a level, I'm kind of stuck, always playing catch up just to even qualify.
Exactly. That is the definition of that vicious cycle we see so often.
The classic catch-22. Need money to grow and get compliant, but need compliance and scale to win the contracts that bring the money.
Precisely. So the alternative mindset, it shifts your focus. Instead of seeing tenders as the only goal, the immediate goal, you position strategic funding like non-repayable grants, or those very favorable loans, as a tool.
A tool to build that internal strength you mentioned.
Yes, you use it to invest in, say, new machinery or upgrade critical software, maybe hire skilled managers. If you strategically use funding to build capacity first.
Then you shift from being just a hopeful applicant
To an established competitor. That investment in yourself, that's what makes you inherently more bankable, more credible, and more competitive for any contract down the line.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, before we jump into the specific institutions, GEP and DSBD, let's quickly define the types of funding, because funding covers a lot, doesn't it? It's not all the same.
Absolutely. That clarity is essential. So first up, you have grants.
The free money.
Well, yes and no. It is non-repayable money, but it always, and I mean always, comes with strings attached, specific conditions you have to meet.
Usually related to things like job creation or hitting certain development targets.
Exactly. High reward, but definitely high compliance.
Okay, so that's grants. Then we get into the debt side of things.
Right. Next, you've got soft loans or concessional funding. Think of these as loans with a conscience, maybe.
Lower interest rates, better terms.
The much lower interest rates sometimes, or significantly longer, more flexible repayment terms than, a standard commercial bank would ever consider offering. They're designed for growth, not for maximizing profit for the lender.
Okay. But what about giving up a piece of the pie, equity? Is that ever something an SMME should seriously look at, or should they always aim for a soft loan first?
Ooh, that's a really high-stakes question. Sacrificing equity, that falls under equity, co-ownership, or investment funding. You really only want to consider that if the investor brings massive strategic value, access to networks, deep expertise, something beyond just the cash.
Don't sell the farm just for a loan, basically.
Basically, yes. Then you also have things like incentives and rebates, tax breaks maybe, or reimbursements if you meet certain criteria, like hiring young people.
Right.
And finally, there's what can be a real strategic powerhouse, blended funding.
Blended, so a mix.
Typically, yes. It usually involves a component of non-repayable grant money combined with a soft loan.
Now, blended funding sounds great on paper, but practically speaking, is there a risk it's just, government bureaucracy pushing debt onto a small business that may be only really qualified for the grant part?
It can sometimes feel that way, I suppose, but the real benefit of blended funding is usually about risk mitigation. The grant portion reduces the overall debt you need to service, making that loan part much easier to manage.
Okay.
It's often used when a business needs a larger amount that a grant alone could cover, but maybe it's still seen as too risky for a full commercial loan. It's a middle ground, really, designed to share the risk between the business and the development agency.
Okay, that makes sense. Right, let's zoom in then. Let's talk about a powerful example at the provincial level, particularly in South Africa's economic heartland, Gauteng. Tell us about GEP, the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller.
Okay, GEP. Their mandate is specifically to drive economic growth and support SMMEs right there in Gauteng. What's really interesting about GEP, I think, is their focus. They seem focused on solving immediate business friction points, not just, general funding needs.
Yeah, I saw they offer a huge menu of finance types. Startup, growth, the usual suspects are there. But let's cut through the noise. What are maybe the two most unique or actionable things GEP offers that, our listener should maybe look into today?
Okay, good question. First, I definitely highlight their contract finance. This is crucial.
Contract finance, how does that work?
So GEP understands that a signed purchase order, or a contract, that's probably the single biggest risk mitigator for them. Contract finance is essentially bridging capital. If you've already secured the order, say, from a government department or a big company, but you need cash right now to buy materials or maybe pay a deposit.
GEP steps in.
GEP steps in. The insight here is critical. GEP seems to be prioritizing execution risk over market risk. You've already proven the market wants it by getting the PO.
So chase the purchase order first, then use GEP as your leverage to deliver.
Exactly. It immediately solves potentially the biggest cash flow crunch for a business that's just won a tender or a big order.
Okay, that's huge. What's the second unique offering?
The voucher program. This one's a bit different. GEP may subsidize up to 50% of your development or project costs, but it's done through their partner organizations.
So it's not cash directly into my bank account.
No, it's more like subsidized services. Think getting help with specialized consulting, maybe developing a quality assurance manual, getting specific legal advice drafted. This is pure capacity building, often without taking on any debt.
Interesting. Okay, so if I want to apply for GEP finance, we know the standard documents are needed, business plan, financials, etc. But what's a specific compliance issue that trips up applicants most often? What's the common mistake?
Oh, definitely the financials, specifically the currency and completeness of them. Funders like GEP, they need to see clean, up-to-date, signed-off financials.
Not drafts?
No. I've literally seen applications rejected simply because the most recent year statements were draft versions, or maybe they were 6 months old already. They are looking for reasons to say no sometimes, and outdated governance is a really quick way out for them.
Okay, good tip. And what's the best way to actually get these applications submitted? Online? In person?
Well, GEP does have online application systems, but you know how these things can be. Sometimes functionality can be a bit intermittent. So always be prepared to use the manual route as a backup.
Like email submissions or physically dropping off documents.
Exactly. Submission via email or taking them to a regional office. But here's the really key tip. Even if your business doesn't quite meet all the strict criteria for their standard contract or growth loan,
You should still apply.
you absolutely must still apply, because you might be automatically assessed as eligible for other kinds of support, like a grant component, or maybe that voucher program we just talked about. Don't self-select out.
Got it. That local provincial focus in Gauteng is fantastic, really targeted. But for businesses thinking bigger or operating elsewhere, we need to look nationally. Who's running the show on that macro level?
Okay, so now we shift focus to the national mandate. This is primarily overseen by the Department of Small Business Development, or DSBD. The DSBD's strength, I'd say, is really in its highly targeted support. They don't just fund general growth, they try to tackle specific developmental gaps in the economy.
Right. Let's break down some of those targeted initiatives then.
Think of it maybe like this. They're running both emergency rooms and specialized clinics for businesses. For instance, they run the Business Viability Program.
That sounds like the emergency room.
It essentially is. It's an emergency fund designed to help distressed enterprises. It offers both financial triage, you could call it, and non-financial support to try and stabilize the business.
And they also have specific funds aimed at boosting inclusive growth, right? Targeting different demographics.
Precisely. You've got the Youth Challenge Fund, which specifically supports youth-owned startups and enterprises. There's the She Trades Zia initiative, targeting women-owned businesses, helping them scale locally, but also gear up for export readiness. Then there's the Cooperatives Development Support Program, the CDSP, which is aimed at more structured co-op ventures. They seem to be really focused on making sure money gets to Specific points of need, not just, where the finance application is easiest to approve.
And the DSBD doesn't always directly hand out the cash itself, right? It works closely with key funding agencies.
Absolutely. The Small Enterprise Finance Agency, SEFA, is probably the primary financial implementation arm. They provide finance, often at rates below commercial banks.
But you mentioned something earlier for innovative listeners.
Yes, we have to highlight the seed fund. Now, this is technically run via the DTIC and national government, but it's crucial for SMMEs looking to commercialize innovation or research. This is high-impact, early-stage funding.
How much are we talking?
Usually somewhere between R100,000 and maybe up to R500,000, typically over a 12-month period. It's designed to get innovative ideas off the ground and into the market.
R500,000 for commercializing innovation. That is a massive potential boost for a tech startup or similar.
It really is.
And I also saw mention of a very specialized fund, one that seems to cut right to the heart of the community economy.
Ah, yes, the Spaza Shop Support Fund. This one recognizes the huge economic importance of that local Spaza Shop ecosystem. It's structured, interestingly, as a 50% grant and a 50% loan.
The blended model again.
Exactly. And crucially, it packages in training and other non-financial support. The goal is to help formalize and professionalize these vital community businesses.
Okay, it honestly sounds like there's funding for almost every niche if you know where to look. But we both know accessing it isn't easy. I've heard the horror stories. What are the most common roadblocks or challenges?
Well, the biggest killer, honestly, it's often not the business idea itself, but the compliance hurdles. Funders, especially government ones, have incredibly strict rules and mandates.
Right.
They have specific objectives outlined in their call for funding proposals. If your proposal doesn't clearly map your business activities and outcomes directly to those objectives, if you don't explicitly connect your why to their why, you'll likely fail.
So it's not just an application for money. It's more like you're writing a development thesis, proving alignment.
That's a great way to put it. Exactly. I mean, I've seen genuinely incredible businesses fail at the application stage simply because, say, they handed in a 9-page proposal when the funder specifically requested a maximum of 8 pages.
Wow, that's strict.
That's the level of meticulous compliance you often need to master. It means you absolutely must monitor the DSBD funding calls constantly and proactively engage with your local DSBD or SEDA offices. Get known, ask questions.
And don't ignore the other stuff they offer.
Definitely not. Always prioritize grabbing any non-financial support that's on offer. That mentorship, the training, the networking opportunities, sometimes that stabilizes a growing business far more effectively in the long run than just the initial capital injection.
Okay, so we've covered the types of money, the main agencies like GEP and DSBD. Let's make this really actionable for the listener now. Beyond just checking a website once in a while, how can I proactively find these opportunities and position my business for success?
Right. It needs to be a structured preparation process. First, research and monitoring has to become, like, a daily or weekly habit. Subscribe to every relevant newsletter, follow the government portals, set up alerts, because these funding windows can be incredibly short and highly targeted. Miss it, and you wait another year, maybe.
And you also need to realize you don't have to navigate this whole complex maze alone, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Never try to go it entirely alone. Use intermediaries and networks. Your local SEDA office, industry associations, local chambers of commerce, they're often notified of new funding calls before the general public even sees them. Build those relationships.
Makes sense. And internally within the business.
Internally, you have to build credibility. Constantly. Maintain clean, current financials, get them audited if possible. Ensure your company registration details are perfect with CIPC. Keep your tax affairs absolutely squeaky clean. Funders are managing public or development money. They're inherently risk-averse. Your credibility is your primary shield against rejection.
Okay. Then when I actually sit down to write that proposal, how do I make sure I nail the presentation? What are they looking for?
Your proposal writing has to clearly articulate the outcome, not just the input. Don't just list what machinery you'll buy. Detail the projected growth, the specific number of new jobs you realistically expect to create, and be honest about the risks and how you'll mitigate them.
And connect it back to their goals.
Critically, address that concept we mentioned earlier, alignment. You have to explicitly show the funder how your business mission and what you're asking for perfectly matches the specific development goals of their particular program or fund. Ask yourself, why did GEP or the DSBD set up this specific fund in the first place? Then tell them precisely how your business will help them achieve their mandate.
That focus on the funder's mission, connecting their why to your why, that really feels like the powerful takeaway here. It shifts the whole dynamic. It's the difference between just asking for money and genuinely demonstrating a potential partnership.
It truly is. And one last thing, persistence. This isn't just a soft skill here. It's a core requirement. Funding calls come and go, eligibility rules change, priorities shift, and you might not succeed on your first or even second attempt.
Keep trying.
Continuous engagement, learning from feedback if you get it,
Yep.
and refining your application, these are absolutely non-negotiable if you're serious about accessing this type of support.
This has been an incredibly detailed and I think really high-impact deep dive. We've clearly established that just relying solely on tenders, well, it puts your business growth at the mercy of external timelines and really fierce competition. Funding, used strategically, is that parallel path, the one that actually allows for planned, sustainable capacity building on your own terms.
And we've laid out the key resources, GEP at the provincial level in Gauteng and DSBD and its partners like SEFA and the Seed Fund operating nationally. We really want to encourage you, the listener, take maybe just an hour this week to research one of the specific targeted programs we discussed, maybe contract finance, maybe the Seed Fund, maybe the sponsorship support if that fits, and just see how its stated mission aligns or doesn't align with your own business goals.
Right, do that homework. And as a final provocative thought for you to mull over, really use this concept of capacity building as your long-term differentiator. Think about this. When you successfully use funding to invest in your business, whether it's new equipment, better governance systems, or more skilled staff, you don't just solve a short-term cash flow problem,
No, you fundamentally alter your business's risk profile.
making you more attractive not just to future funders.
But also to every potential commercial client and, yes, much stronger for every future tender application you decide to pursue.
Capacity is credibility.
Build capacity now. Win the bigger contracts later. That's the strategy.
Fantastic. That's a wrap on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.